Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
And we say good morning to our Kapiti Mayor, Guru. Kia ora, Guru.
Good morning, Nigel, and good morning to the listeners.
Welcome back. We missed you last week because you were down at the local government conference and
in Christchurch.
In Christchurch, yeah.
Interesting in a number of points. One is local government conferences are always, I come out of it overloaded in my head, the sort of stuff, the information. The other thing is, this is the first time I've been back to Christchurch since the earthquake. Walking around, taxiing around, there are a lot of empty spaces. And the town, the new buildings that have come out look fabulous. But the empty spaces make it seem as if the town hasn't, there's no critical mass, it hasn't gelled together yet.
And I think that's what the people down there are feeling, aren't they? But they're hoping that those gaps might be filled up.
Yeah, but they're doing some amazing things. One of the tours that I went to was on the smart cities and the use of technology on a whole range of things to make it more efficient and stuff. Because you are, to a large extent, once you remove 1,600 buildings, you have got almost an empty canvas, a blank canvas, so you can start doing things. So they're using the sort of high technology and stuff like that. So in that sense, they've got the leading edge in terms of what they want to do in the future.
Sure.
So that was very interesting. The other, within the conference itself, one measurement is if you look at we had 12 remits. 7 out of the 12 remits had dealings with climate change and environmental issues. So that's already signaling where the direction or what local authorities see as challenges right across the country. Some key issues, of course, the Minister for Local Government, Nanaya Mahota, repeated the challenges facing us in terms of what's coming on the potable water front. Clear message, status quo is not acceptable. A regulatory body will be established. It looks that's coming. And then the aggregation, meaning basically underlining the Treasury approach to efficiency. The larger the bodies are, the better efficiency you can get on it, and also better you can regulate it and fund it. And therefore, small councils like us and others across the country face the reality of having to become part of a bigger body. That would be useful in terms of a whole range of smaller communities right across the country. But for us here in Kapiti, I think we have dealt with the water issue really well. And so one of the questions or responses that we are giving back to them is, look, if this is the outcome you want, safer water supply, efficiency, and capital investment into those areas to make it so, then we have already done it. So why are we being punished by the potential of being forced to become part of a bigger body? But the question then, of course, is it is not a very fine tool, instrument they're using. It'll be a blunt instrument to get majority compliance. So we would be collateral damage in that sense. So we got to think: do we talk with Horowhenua, or do we talk with Wellington Water? So that's a challenge, because if the status quo is not acceptable to the government, then legislation is coming.
So what does it really mean when you say we have to talk with Wellington or Horowhenua if legislation is coming? I mean, we've got a good water supply here now and it's well paid for, so why do we need to go out?
Well, I mean, this is what it is. I mean, I think we would be reluctant to do that. But the government says, look, we want to aggregate the big bodies and stuff like that. And so if they legislate, then there's nothing you can do about it, which means we become part of the big organization. And the biggest and most efficient organization closest to us is Wellington Water, which combines, Wellington, Porirua, and the Hutt.
So the benefits for us would be what?
Well, this is a discussion that we need to have.
Right.
Which means one could see it as a reduction in staff, because our highly qualified staff may be absorbed. This has potential. I'm not saying this is what can happen. Our asset value, $165 million worth of assets. I mean, that would potentially go. And the question is, does the debt that goes with it, because we're still paying off debt on those infrastructure that we've invested in. So what happens to that debt? Will that go with it? That will, there are positives out of that in terms of our debt burden. But then we lose local control over it. Who then decides on the cost of water?
So it could become a public asset, could it, in the end? Somebody privately owned?
No, it would be. The minister was very adamant to make it very clear from the start that they are not looking at this becoming privatized. He said it will be publicly owned. That will be a stipulation in any legislation that's going to come up. So anyway, this is all for conversation. So we need to discuss amongst ourselves what is going to be our position, because local government ostensibly has not taken a position on it. They are wanting to listen to all the councils, although I suspect from the signals that I'm getting, I suspect the local government is in favor of aggregation.
So how does this affect the ratepayers? I mean, are we going to be paying more for our rates to keep this going?
No, I don't know, but my suspect is if your asset value has been taken away, if there's considerable debt attached to that, then we are less debt prone. And then we don't have to replace the cost of new changes that are coming out in the next few years, and we don't have to, the depreciation cost will go with that.
Right.
The staff costs will go with that. So we may be leaner, but the key thing is, do we lose local control over an asset that we have managed quite well?
Right, yes.
So there is a political consideration that we need to have. And I don't think our community has shown before that there is fear that anything in that direction will result in privatization. Whether it is founded or unfounded, the fear is there.
So, of course, the other big thing was, and overall attached to that, is that the rates bill, they say, are set to soar about 50% over the next decade. And they say, well, you know, we've got to look at that too. So was that well debated at the conference?
No, I mean, this is, the conversation is just starting. So we need to get in the groups. And that's the key for me is the conversation that councillors need to have with our communities. And the conversation that we need to have with either we look to Horowhenua and see what they've got, and also Wellington Water. Wellington Water is keen to have a discussion with us. In fact, they've been keen to discuss with us for a couple of months now. So it is it's coming. But then the conversation will be in the next few months. I'm not sure when the government is expected to make any kind of decision. It will take a bit of time, I think.
Was there a bit of discussion around the GST that we pay on our rates comes back to the councils rather than going to government? Was that discussed?
Yeah, that's been one of the questions that have been raised in terms of the funding. I mean, Simpson Grayson, I think one of the best lawyers in terms of local government issues, they put out a paper on funding of infrastructure, which is a big problem because, including the water one, when you have smaller communities, how do you fund your infrastructure? And even large growing communities like us, Wellington, Hamilton, how do they fund their infrastructure? We know that almost 75 to 80% of our income comes from ratepayers. Wellington, is a landlord. I mean, they have income. You got investment in the port and the airport and the port. And, we don't have any of those, and there are many other councils like us who are dependent on rates, and therefore we need to find new avenues of income. And this is another area where one thing is when we pay our rates, there's GST on top of that, so it's a tax on a tax.
Yes, that's right.
Surely that part of the GST should come back to the councils to use as income to pay for all the sorts of things that we have to pay for.
All this sort of talk that you've been saying this morning, it sounds like we're almost on the fringes of this discussion again of amalgamation. No. I think the amalgamation is out. What we are looking at is the shared services type. I mean, there was a discussion for quite some time. In fact, the Local Government Commission's chairman recently sent a letter to all the mayors saying that they actually done and dusted in terms of pushing for any kind of amalgamation in the Wellington area.
I think they see it as a dead cause. But they see very positive signs in terms of all the councils working together on a whole range of topics, issues, and shared services is one of them. And therefore, he is confident. The only thing he mentioned was, the chairman mentioned was, while it's all good that all the mayors and the chief executives are working well together, any change long term cannot depend on the political personalities that occupy the seat at a particular time. So what he's saying is maybe we need more structural approaches. But this issue on the water one is a national issue. It's been driven by the government following the Havelock North disaster.
Okay. Yep.
And they've got a point there. I mean, there are a lot of small communities with their own water supply things. And the inquiry into the Havelock North one showed very clearly that one third of councils are not compliant in terms of providing safe drinking water. That's a health danger.
The other one that's popped up, of course, was yesterday when Eugenie Sage, Minister of Environment, suggested that our waste be put up to $140 a tonne. So that must be another worry for the...
She hasn't suggested that. What's happening is...
But they are suggesting that, aren't they?
The local government remit to the government is asking for the landfill charges to go up. Currently, it's $10 per tonne. But you must understand also the levy, the $10 per tonne, eventually comes back to councils for them to use in waste minimization schemes. And so if you make landfill charges high and you do it incrementally, you don't plonk the $140 a tonne bang on straight from the beginning. You do it incrementally. In fact, they were supposed to do it when they started the charges back in 2009 or something. The previous government didn't continue to incrementally increase it. What that will do is it will make dumping in landfills more expensive, so it makes recycling a much more viable economic activity. And also the charges that you get from the increased charges that you get from the levy, waste minimization levy, will then come back to councils. You will have more money to deal with waste minimization schemes.
Right.
We give out grants all the time. Every year we give out grants for different schemes to reduce waste, and I think that's the key. We are one of the remits that we've got is product stewardship, which means the producers of these products, whether they are like especially our tires and all that, they've got to ensure that these are retrievable and recyclable, rather than pushing the onus on consumers. The producers themselves, the amount of packaging they use. I mean, they don't have to use that kind of packaging, but they do. So it's changing the materials used in products at the top end, where the manufacturing end or retail at the manufacturing end, rather than at the consumer end, that we've got to get rid of those.
Right. So the Kapiti Coast District Council's waste minimisation plan is now becoming pretty urgent, because I see we're Horofanua saying, well, we get from Kapiti 15,000 tonnes a year from Kapiti residents, and they're trying to cut down on their waste. So we're going to have to look at where we get rid of this waste, don't we?
I think what they want is they want the Hokio landfill to be closed.
Yeah.
So there are two things there. I mean, James Coots raised an interesting question, which I didn't think of it before until he raised it. If they close Hokio landfill and they're telling Kapiti they don't want Kapiti's rubbish to come there, where is their rubbish going to go?
Yeah.
Are they going to open a new landfill? Are they going to send it to Bonnie Glen, to somebody else's territory?
Yeah, but still, that's their concern, isn't it?
What we got to understand in this area is we are locked into a contract with the waste companies, and therefore that's got to run. And if they are claiming that the Hokio landfill is non-compliant, they're in breach of the consenting order, we cannot say that's what it is. We need to listen to the Horizons regional council down there, which are the consenting authority. They have to tell us that it is non-compliant. And it's only then can we then say, look, we cannot. We can tell our Midwest that look, the waste that goes to that you take from us needs to go to a compliant one. And in fact, we don't even need to tell them, because under the RMA they are required to take the rubbish to a compliant landfill by law. What happens is when the rubbish goes to the Otahanga transfer station, that rubbish from that gateway belongs to Midwest.
Okay.
It's theirs. It's no longer ours.
But it must be of concern to you because eventually, we're not going to be able to just say, well, it's over to you guys to just get rid of it. I mean, they're going to be restricted as to where they can actually get rid of it.
Well, this is a national debate. I mean, this is why the government needs to step in. I mean, small councils like us have got zilch to play with because, even if you look at the shareholders in the Enviroways and what's the other company, big company?
Waste management.
Waste management. They have got cross ownership by the same Hong Kong-based company owns part of each of those companies. I mean, it's I lose. How much do you need to know in terms of how they play the game nationally, which landfills, and they own some of the landfills where the rubbish is tipped. And so it's a very complex issue, and we are small players caught inside there.
Yeah.
So the government needs to step in. What we do have is we have a regional waste minimization strategy, which we have signed up to. I think that's a good document to use and operate under, and that's what we should be aspiring towards.
Gary, we thank you.
Argument. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you finish off that. I was just saying we've run out of time, but you just finish off what you were saying there.
No, there are people who said, we should bring it in-house. If you bring it in-house, you're looking at a 5%, almost 5% rate in the rates increase. I mean, who wants that?
That's right. It's about $2 to $3 million, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or more than that, $4 or $5 million from setup costs and everything included. This will be a disaster for us.
All right, some very interesting topics there, Guru, and we'll have another chat next Monday if we can.
Cool.
Thanks very much. There's Guru, our Kapiti Mayor here.
106.3 Beach FM.